But we have to take care of this little gnat that's on our shoulder called the Democrats.
Important mission. And I told Pete we should use some of these dangerous cities as training grounds for our military, National Guard, but military.
Duty U.S. military, 61%. The National Guard in particular, 58%. When you get 3 in 5 Americans agreeing on anything, you know if that is on the opposition side, it's a political loser. And among independents, who are, of course, that key block in the middle of the United States political electorate, we're talking about 2/3 of independents there and about who oppose the deployment of either active duty U.S. military or National Guard into U.S. cities.
Let's talk about something that in 2025 you'd think should never even need a poll. An American president threatening to use the military on American citizens. A move that is not just dangerous, it's wildly unpopular.
Trump may use the National Guard to intimidate rivals, or big city crime will spiral out of control if the troops don't go into cities. What you see here is the majority that takes the case is that Trump may use the National Guard to intimidate political rivals at 51%.
After Trump spoke to more military members over the weekend, referring to Democrats as gnats and using more inflammatory rhetoric, he of course sent out chief propagandist Caroline Leavitt to play smoke and mirrors after news broke that his calls to activate the military against its own citizens were about as popular as, well, him at the moment.
If the courts allow you to ultimately send in the National Guard into Chicago and Portland, do Democrats not have reason to be concerned that there are long-term plans by this administration to keep U.S. military or the National Guard in American cities, like what we're seeing here in Washington?
Why should they be concerned about the federal government offering help to make their cities a safer place? They should be concerned about this. They should be concerned about the fact that people in their cities right now are being gunned down every single night. And the president, all he's trying to do is fix it. And there has been a complete smear campaign by the Democrats and the media, quite frankly. I was reading Political Playbook this morning, one of the most inside the Beltway newsletters you can find. And you guys are framing this like the president wants to take over the American cities with the military. The president wants to help these local leaders who have been completely ineffective in securing their own cities. And we have already seen there's a positive formula for that. Look at Washington, D.C. The murder rate has declined significantly. Our streets are safer. People who live here feel safer. All of you in this room, I know you do. You just won't admit it. And it's a proven system that works, and the president wants to make America's cities safe again. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
She did her best Mike Johnson impersonation as she pretended to just not hear what Trump's been saying at his pop-up military events every few days.
The president also said at the Pentagon yesterday that he wants American cities to be used as training grounds for the American military. Is this the highest and best use of the U.S. military, and is this the right way to train them?
I don't serve in the Pentagon. I run the House of Representatives. And what we need to be talking about today is real harm that the American people are going to feel because of what Chuck Schumer is doing. Let me tell you what's going to be heard today.
Hold on a second. As Speaker of the House, do you answer the question. As Speaker of the House, do you believe it's appropriate to use American cities as training grounds for the U.S. military, calling those people in the American cities the enemy within? I'm asking you, as Speaker of the House, do you think that's appropriate?
I'm not going to comment on your characterization of what the president said. I didn't get to see that speech
because
I was a little busy yesterday. Well, you can take his quotes out of context, which you often do, and I don't think that's fair to the president. I'll tell you what he's done, though. He's put National Guard troops here in D.C. and cleaned up the crime problem. People can walk safely to and from work today because the president takes crime seriously. Some of the big mayors in some of these big blue cities are not, and I think that's probably what he was addressing there.
But as CNN's Harry Enton recently pointed out, it's so very unpopular, right?
Duty U.S. military, 61%. The National Guard in particular, 58%. When you get 3 in 5 Americans agreeing on anything, you know if that is on the opposition side, it's a political loser. Just 42% of Americans agree with the Donald Trump stance that, in fact, big city crime will spiral out of control if the National Guard doesn't go into U.S. cities. So essentially what we're seeing here is Donald Trump's making a case, the Democratic opposition's making another case, and the Democratic opposition's case is winning here. And that is a big reason why what you see is you get about 3 in 5 Americans saying they don't want troops going into U.S. cities.
You have another really interesting way at looking at this. President Trump seems uniquely focused on Portland, on Memphis, on these cities and crime there. what do voters think he should be focused on?
Okay, so if you saw the opening slide on this segment, right, it was, has Trump taken his eye off the ball? The American people believe, yes, John Berman, Donald Trump has taken his eye off the ball. There is too much focus on putting troops into U.S. cities. 52%, the majority of Americans agree that the Trump admin is focusing too much on that. Where do they want him to go? They want him to focus on lowering prices. 75% say there's too little focus on lowering prices. This is the reason that Donald Trump was put into office, was to lower prices. And at this particular point, 3 in 4 Americans say there is too little focus. Donald Trump is focusing on the wrong things, and they don't like the way he's going about it. And this, my friends, will tell the entire story. If it holds a year from now, going into the midterm elections, if the Republicans lose control of the House, dare lose control of the Senate, it will be because they believe that Donald Trump has lost focus. He is not keeping his eye on the ball, and they believe he is not focusing enough on lowering prices.
Interesting numbers coming out on prices and inflation and the economy this week. We'll have much more to talk about.
I think we will have much more this week, Mr. Berman.
And thank you very much for it.
And let's take a moment to appreciate how completely this misses the point of America as a whole, because I'm pretty sure that the founders literally fought a war to stop a standing army from being used against citizens. They even passed laws like the Posse Comitatus Act to make sure that no president could treat protesters like enemy combatants.
Attorney General Schwab, are you familiar with the Posse Comitatus Act?
Posse Comitatus Act is a law, long-standing law in our country that makes clear that in our country, military are not engaged in policing American citizens on American soil.
Absolutely, but isn't that what President Trump is doing right now, bringing in the military to police the civilian population in this district?
And their orders were unlawful and inherently so. They tried to rely on this supposed exception to the Posse Comitatus Act that the military can be deployed on American soil to protect federal property, people, and functions. And Justice Breyer, during the trial, Judge Breyer, during the trial, rightfully asked, I haven't seen that in the Constitution. Can you point it out? And of course, it could not be pointed out by the witness because it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist in any federal law. It's not an exception to the Posse Comitatus Act. Right. So the whole basis for the scope of the deployment here was in violation of the Posse Comitatus Act, and that was the main thrust of our argument. And the court's order reflects that.
But that didn't stop the president from telling a room full of generals last week that they ought to treat U.S. cities like training grounds. And the thing is, this isn't just about legality, right? It's about democracy. I mean, the second that you see soldiers rolling down your street, democracy doesn't really feel like democracy anymore, does it? It actually feels more like a threat.
Fire department. I always put the fire department in because they're great. They're great. And I got 95% of their vote, too. That helps. When you get 95% of their vote, you always have to mention them. But they're great. And they're brave in our inner cities, which we're going to be talking about, because it's a big part of war now. It's a big part of war. But the firemen go up in ladders, and you have people shooting at them while they're up in ladders. I don't even know if anybody heard that. And I said, don't talk about it much, but I think you have to. Our firemen are incredible. They're up in one of these ladders that goes way up to the sky, rescuing people, and you have animals shooting at them, shooting bullets at firemen that are way up in death territory. You fall off that ladder, it's over.
Something former Vice President Kamala Harris warned about when she was running against Trump, just as she did about Trump embracing Project 2025. I mean, at this point, I wonder when we'll start to see all the retractions from those who slammed her for doing so.
Today we learned that Donald Trump's former Chief of Staff, John Kelly, a retired four-star general, confirmed that while Donald Trump was president, he said he wanted generals like Adolf Hitler had. Donald Trump said that because he does not want a military that is loyal to the United States Constitution. He wants a military that is loyal to him. He wants a military who will be loyal to him personally, one that will obey his orders even when he tells them to break the law or abandon their oath to the Constitution of the United States. In just the past week, Donald Trump has repeatedly called his fellow Americans the enemy from within, and even said that he would use the United States military to go after American citizens. And let's be clear about who he considers to be the enemy from within. Anyone who refuses to bend a knee or dares to criticize him would qualify, in his mind, as the enemy within, like judges, like journalists, like nonpartisan election officials. It is deeply troubling and incredibly dangerous that Donald Trump would invoke Adolf Hitler, the man who is responsible for the deaths of 6 million Jews and hundreds of thousands of Americans. All of this is further evidence for the American people of who Donald Trump really is. This is a window into who Donald Trump really is, from the people who know him best, from the people who worked with him side by side in the Oval Office and in the Situation Room. And it is clear from John Kelly's words that Donald Trump is someone who, I quote, certainly falls into the general definition of fascist, who in fact vowed to be a dictator on day one and vowed to use the military as his personal militia to carry out his personal and political vendettas. Donald Trump is increasingly unhinged and unstable. And in a second term, people like John Kelly would not be there to be the guardrails against his propensities and his actions. Those who once tried to stop him from pursuing his worst impulses would no longer be there, and no longer be there to rein him in. So the bottom line is this. We know what Donald Trump wants. He wants unchecked power. The question in 13 days will be, what do the American people want? Thank you.
But when you look at the response, it is clear that Trump is losing ground with those outside of his base on this very issue, with moderates especially unable to side with the authoritarianism of it all. More than half the country across party lines are saying, hey, don't do this. But when has this man ever listened? I mean, no has never meant no to him, has it?
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.